My goodness. That's a nice reception for a completely unknown group and artist. Thank you very much. I'm John Fortman, and I think most of you already know that, but I would be interested in knowing those of you that don't and how you managed to find probably the strangest art event you could go to this evening, or one of them at least, in the Metroplex. We're here tonight to do a couple of things, basically. We are going to play a little music, and we're going to raise a little money for a great organization, which is this church, First United Methodist Church, here in Fort Worth. And I need to give a nice big Cowtown howdy to all the family that are here tonight from out of town. And if you are from out of town, thank you for being here. The other reason is to finally say that this strange-looking thing is now finished after 9 years. So to say that it's been an interesting journey just does not quite cover it. I'm going to be talking a little bit in between every song tonight. I promise I won't PBS pledge you and play 3 minutes of music and talk 30. That we're not going to do that. But the CD is for sale tonight. All proceeds tonight, tickets and this, are going to stay right here with the church. This is my way of just saying a little tiny thank you for a great organization that has been a harbor and a sanctuary for me for many, many years, and I have made so many lifelong friends and experiences here, both musically and relationship-wise. This CD is dedicated to my mother. She's right up here in the front in the stripes. The street she lives on is part of the name. Gifts and Testaments of Robin Hood Road comes from the fact that she lives there, and you'll read it when you purchase your 3 or 4 copies. You'll see the dedication in there. It has to do with the environment that she provided for her 3 sons to thrive artistically and to do crazy things like this. So there are a lot of questions that come about when you have a project that spans this long. The production part was 9 years, but actually the writing goes all the way back to my college years, which was 1984 it goes back to. So this is the 25th anniversary of any inkling of this thing. Lest you think that 9 years is a long time. It's been quite longer, actually, from the conception. There are some people I have to do some call-outs to. This is the longest I'm going to talk tonight, so I just got a little bit of housekeeping I need to do before we get really cranking here. Some folks that I have come to know since I began working on this. Well, before I say that, let me clear up something. There seems to be the idea that there are 2 CDs, and this CD release is actually a second CD. That's not the case. There is this ugly, artless thing that I handed out because I was not about to take money for this from anybody. This floated around from 2003 to, I would say, late last year. There is only one CD. This was a version, and I wasn't happy with it. And the artwork phase lasted 4 years. Okay, I'll talk more about artwork later, but that is how the perception of 2 versions came about. There is 2 versions, but they're actually the same CD with respect to the bulk of what's on the CD. Some folks I need to mention speaking of 2003. My friend Stuart Turnage did something that no one had ever done, and I didn't even dream anybody would do it. He had this, and he said, "Hey, John, I dig your opening piece. Can I play it down here at the contemporary service that happens right here in this venue in between, the band warming up and the show starting?" And this is how long ago this was. There is no contemporary service anymore in this venue on Sunday evenings. But he played it, and then that led to Tom McDermott. Where's Tom McDermott? Tom McDermott picked that up and said, "I want to know what this is. What is this?" And that's where it ended. It stopped right there until, this is all kind of linked. They didn't know they were working together on this until Charles Gaby called me to lunch in 2004, the summer of 2004. He has no recollection of this, I'm sure, but he proposed to me the most insane thing I had heard to that point, and that was, "Hey, why don't you come down and play keyboard for the contemporary band down here at the 11:11 service?" And my immediate thought was, I could stand out here on 5th Street and wait for the first person to walk by, and they would be a better keyboard player than I was. But skeptical as I was, I came down, played with the band a little bit. I was just filling in for Charles. He was trying to transition his duties in that band. And so I stuck around, and lo and behold, I became the drummer of the band eventually, which is just really weird because that brings me full circle in my whole musical journey, because I started on snare drum in 8th grade. So why tell you all that? Well, as an artist, whether you realize it, whether you like it, you are going to be influenced by your surroundings, your circumstances, the people that you come in touch with, and I was no exception. I got introduced to a whole genre that I had written off a long time ago, the folk genre. Charles Gaby is singularly responsible for showing me that folk music could be so incredibly profound, and I thank him for that. The influences have seeped into my writing, and you can find it on the later stuff that happened here. You wouldn't know what that is, but I'm just telling you that it will have an effect, and it has an effect mostly on the new stuff that I've written. This thing has gone on so long, I've now written 40% of the next CD. And that's what you do when you kind of have a project that lingers for quite a while. So 3 people here at the church that just might be responsible for this event happening at all, because they kept nudging me and saying, "When are you going to do a coffee house, John? When? This went on for like 3 years at least. Mike Reeves, Terry Nabosny, and Bruce Mobley are in my singles group here at church, and it was their persistence. They said, when? Well, it's tonight." Finally. So thank you very much for being pests, because I appreciate it. Thank you. Leslie Smith is my friend, and she's singing. You saw her up here singing. She's helping out with the choral duties. She got a copy of this about 2 years ago, and she said, "If you ever do anything with this thing live-wise like this, I want in." And so there she is, and I appreciate that so much. And last but not least, the person that really, really figured out what this was supposed to be was my dear friend Diane Sturdivant. Where is Diane? Brian, right there. Diane and I, at the contemporary service here, I met her here. We go to the service here. Well, I play in the service. She goes to the service pretty consistently. We would meet out in that hall, I guess, for 2 years, had to be. And we, about every couple of months, we would say, "Okay, what's this thing going to be?" And I would say, it ain't going to be a coffee house. I don't belong on that coffee house schedule. It's not coffee house music. I don't want to get in the way of that whole scheduling thing. It just didn't seem fair to me. So, and that went on and on and on. And I said, well, I think I'll just book the hall like I'm getting married or something and, you know, do it privately. And then there was one Sunday where we were talking and going back and forth and back and forth. And I was saying, well, the CD's not going to be ready till maybe early '09, maybe late '09. I don't know at this point. And I said, maybe I'll just do a little concert of what I've got now, and who cares if the CD's ready or not. And then she said these words, and then it was done. CD release concert, and then that was it. It was taken care of from that point. And then the journey of getting here started. Let's take inventory of what you heard so far. The opening, the very, very first thing that you heard is actually on the CD. It was some choral stuff followed by my niece, Tori, and her daddy talking in the end. Tori this is how long ago this was. She was about 2 then. That is at the very end of the CD. I needed about 1:20 to go with that opening sequence, and I couldn't find anything. And then I remembered one of my influences. Here's where the influences come in. I remembered we covered David Wilcox a lot in this service, and David Wilcox has a song, a really profound song. Tom sings it masterfully, that talks about, let's start at the end and come back forward. And what he's getting at is, the broken relationships. Why don't we start with the breakup, and then let's come back this way and get back to that really great place we were. And I thought, well, I'm going to just take the end of the CD and put it right up front, and there you have it. So the overture that you heard was created because of this event. When I figured out what we were supposed to be doing, and I started to envision, and this was in January of '08 that I started thinking about this, and I started thinking, okay, the end of '08, can I possibly get something in place for the fall of '08? And then when I realized that I didn't like the way the concert would be starting, I kept going back to my old concert days where I would go to all the great bands, Styx, Kansas, ELO, Genesis, Yes, and they had this grand piece of classical music that they would play in front of those concerts, and it just set the tone so beautifully. And I thought, I'll just do that, just rock the place out with this big, huge Stravinsky thing or whatever, And then I realized, wait a minute, I went to music school. I know what the overture form is. It's one of the easiest forms to write. I'll just write my own. And so what you hear opening the concert actually opens this thing now. So I owe the planning of this event to actually changing what was at the front end of this CD. So the next thing we played was called The Calling, but here's the catch. The one that we played tonight ain't on here. There's a reason for that. It couldn't possibly be. The lyrics for what I wrote are plastered in here times 2,185 copies. And the music wasn't finished yet. So the artwork had to be done before the CD was even finished. So 3 years ago, Tom McDermott got a lot of interest in that piece, and we wanted to do it at the 11/11 service here. And we both agreed that a 9/11 tribute wasn't really that appropriate for Epiphany Sunday. So he went off and in the space of like a day wrote the lyrics that you heard, and I was so blown away. I went ahead and had a whole new version done of that version of that piece. And if you would like a copy of that, there is a sign-up sheet back where you can get your CD back by Mary Ann in the corner over there. If you'd like a copy of that, you can get it. And I just wanted to make sure before you get home and open this up, and you're like, well, I don't remember those lyrics. You can sign up for it. I'll transact it privately, but the money will still come right here to the church. So don't worry about that. So the antique harmoniums, what in the world could that be about? How about we do fun with band names real quick? I found a file on my computer. I guess it was earlier this year. I'd even forgotten it had even existed, and it had jotted down in a notepad file all of the attempts at a band name. I didn't want to fly by my own name when creating this thing. So apparently this is a list of names that I came up with dating back 8 years or so. And Randy, just go ahead and press enter. Let's see what these are. Man was supposed to be like Fort Man with the extra N still tacked on. I never really liked that anyway. And there was a band that already existed called Man. Mother Night I kind of liked. That's from a Kurt Vonnegut novel, but it's kind of dark. That novel really doesn't suit what I'm about as far as an artist. And there's a band that's named that anyway. Lone Star Johnny and the Make Believe Texans I loved. There's a problem with that, though. Believe it or not, there is a Johnny Lone Star, a real artist in Texas called Johnny Lone Star with the same spelling. Go figure that. So, and in the end, that I write too seriously to have anything like that attached to the project. So I think Stuart Turnage, wherever he is, helped me with that one anyway. Lingo 3 is gibberish. I have no idea what that is. I have no recollection what that is. It was in the file, so I just thought I'd throw it up there. And then the last one, Tambrel Mason, I liked for about 5 minutes until I realized that sounds just like the latest Nashville pop princess. And that wasn't gonna fly. No way. So 5 attempts, and then finally I came up with this, and I've had a couple of sit-in band members who didn't know what was going on say, man, what is that? Spinal Tap? What are you talking about? It's like, yeah, that's about it. But it just suits what I'm about as an artist. And if you read on the back of your program, it will explain the last word in that name. The other, it has to do with my love of history, the fact that the family has always had a lot of antiques. In any house you go to in my family, there's a lot of antiques, except my own, of course. I'm not that crazy about them unless I inherit them, perhaps. But let's see. Okay, the thing we couldn't rehearse at dress rehearsal, or I would have had the band here till 5 a.m., is, I forgot. The final band name, that was the reaction to whenever I told somebody the Antique Harmoniums is what. So I'm surprised there's not a band named that now. So the thing we couldn't rehearse at dress rehearsal, or we would have still been here, is the logistics of getting y'all back up here. So come on back up. We're going to take you now way down to the other end of the spectrum, from sacred inspirational to the parade of broken relationships. And I have to say, even in a song like this, I still have to have some sort of redemptive quality to it. And I do, because I mention in one little snippet of one of the verses my relationship with my mother, which was very special. We united after my parents divorced. And there's a nice little thing in there about that relationship. And this song couldn't have possibly have been written very quickly because it spans a whole bunch of years. So it was special to me because it was the first whole song that I ever wrote. Lyrics, words, and it forever will be special to me in that sense. So let's give this a go.
before I lived today. You made sure it never be that way, Chris and me golden. And you said no, then again you said maybe. I'd love to know what's with your friend JD and the autograph. Even my nose after Crimea. Roses die, young ones try solitude. For a while I could smile and see you like seven. I found God, and you had the Holy
Thank you very much. Randy, go to the next. Yeah. I had real good intentions of making notes about what I wanted to talk about after that first segment, but I didn't quite get to finish this afternoon, but I'll just rely on the slides. This piece of manuscript paper is like a little time machine for me. I could really kick myself for not using or holding on to what I call the organics of writing. This is a piece of organic thing. It's a piece of paper where I actually wrote a piece out. And when you're using things like manuscript paper and you're in the process of writing, you're not thinking about, well, this is going to be special to me someday. You're just thinking, well, this is some dumb idea that I have musically, and I'll scribble it down and maybe I'll remember it someday. But if you do like I did, I mean, the problem with me is I'm a computer programmer analyst, and so it's just real easy to go fire up the PC and just throw it in there, and that's about the most unorganic thing you can do as far as writing. When I pick up this piece of paper, it's actually a very cherished piece of paper because I can remember where I was. It's like a little time machine. I know I touched it. And this is especially special in the fact that when I wrote this piece, it was one of the few things that was actually written where it wasn't all Frankenstein together. I do a lot of that where I find little different ideas, take a chunk here, and figure out how to quilt them together. Quilting, I guess, is a better, friendlier term for it. This piece was just written very linearly with very few erasures. You can see some of the erasures down there at the bottom, but by and large, I'm proud of it because it was actually a one single solid thought process that came out, and that's just not the way it usually comes out of me. So this has a date on it. You probably can't read it, but by 1985, I was into the third year of the grieving process following the death of my maternal grandfather. And as you know, the grieving process is a layered, complex process. And when you mix in a tragic death to that, then of course you add ever more layers and complexity to that process. So it wasn't until fully 3 years later that I felt like I could, in my own way, deal with the circumstances of his death. And this piece was written when I was a graduate assistant where I went to college. And in that office, I had this gigantic office that was the converted music library, and they gave it to a grad assistant. Why, I don't know, but I was happy to have it. And they had this tall, upright grand piano, and I would come in apparently summer, fall of 1985, and I would be working through these emotions, and I would come in and I would just lay my hands down on D-flat major as this was pinned, and I felt myself kind of creating a little conversation musically to try to work my way through the emotions that I was feeling. And so by the time I finished this piece, I felt like I, in a very strange way, had kind of a conversation that and I said some things to my grandfather that I just felt I couldn't say in words, and it was this piece that I felt allowed me to do that. And it's very short. I'll share it with you real quick. I almost timed it perfectly. I rushed the heck out of that thing last night. We were sitting here watching slides for like 2 minutes. So I feel relaxed tonight. That's amazing. That's backwards. So I appreciate you guys hanging in with us on those last two pieces. I put those two up at the front of the program for good reason, so we could get on to happier thoughts. And this next song, there is no happier song on this album. It is a celebration of the joy of having family, and it is a chronology that I attempted to put together in poetic form to tell the story of how my sister-in-law, Christine, came into the Fortman family. And this is probably my favorite song ever that I've ever written, because it came with, as you see up here, a sub-project that I launched into after I'd already written the song. I hadn't gone to production yet on it, but wrote the song in 1999, the year that Christine and Brent, my brother, I'll get to him later. He's over here with the Candy Apple Red Stratocaster, blowing your mind with his Marshall 900 back there. Some sweet sounds there. They announced that they were pregnant with my niece, Tori. And so at that time, I started to reminisce just hugely. And I thought, well, come next year, things are going to be so different with the family. This was just a great time for me to maybe reflect on it and act on it maybe. And I started to think about it, not thinking about trying to write a song, but just remembering all the little stories and all the goofy things that Brent and I did when Brent was dating Christine. I won't go into that, but I tried to get those into the lyrics a little bit. It wouldn't be funny unless you knew the story, but this sub-project of doing this shadow box came about as I was finishing up writing the CD in early 2000. I knew for sure that I wasn't going to go to production until 2001, so I had this gap as I was finishing up writing some other songs on it. And I thought, well, I've got about a year and change to try to do this. And sure enough, by the time I went to production, I had 4 of these shadow boxes done. And I kind of did them a little different for Christine. This is the one I did for myself, and I got one done for my mother and Christine's mother. And so, let's see, Randy, go ahead and go through, rock and roll through these. That's the centerpiece, that's the lyrics. The watermark is a wine cup flower, which I believe is, I've forgotten, it's been so long since I did this. That is indigenous to Texas, I believe, is correct. Go to the next. Okay, now I remember, yeah, this is the lady that did that watermark, and I wanted permission to use it in this piece, and this was the kindest postcard that I got back from her. Said she loved the idea, and by all means, go ahead and use the flower. I believe she went to the same college that Christine went to, and I thought that was kind of neat. And it was also, the photograph was copyrighted same year Brent and Christine were married. So, let's see, next slide, Randy. Cowboys. If you hear the lyric, when cowboys rule the world, these are the cowboys I'm talking about. Christine and I met at a Cowboys Super Bowl watch party back before the Cowboys choked in every sense of the word in the playoffs. So hopefully they've got that cured, but we'll see. This was my favorite find of all the artifacts that I put together for this shadow box. I have never seen this again. This is a postcard of the greatest sports facility that I have ever seen. And actually, there is somebody here that knows exactly what this is. Somebody that came from Baltimore, Maryland for this concert. Tara Reffner's here. There's Tara right over there. Hey, Tara. I'll visit with you later. All the way from Baltimore, Maryland. I'm going to lay claim that she came for this concert. She actually has a bunch of friends down here, but part of the reason was for this concert. And this, of course, is Oriole Park at Camden Yards, where myself and Brent's friend, Rob Brown, flew up and met Brent and Christine up here. And I insisted, whether they wanted to or not, I insisted we go to an Orioles game. And it turns out we were just there in front of Cal Ripken's monumental game, when he broke Lou Gehrig's record of consecutive games. Of course, you couldn't get a seat for that particular night, but the lyric that you hear in the song, that's where this comes from, is our trip up there while Brent was contracting in Baltimore. So what do we have next? The wedding announcement. I played matchmaker for these guys, my only matchmaker effort in my whole life. And there it is, married. That's one of the happiest years of my life. What do we have next? And the invitation, and next, and more invitation. Oh, this slide. Now I want to show you this to show you how easy it can be to write a song. The middle thing, the middle two words there, Thistle Hill, a chunk of the lyrics in this song came from just looking at that invitation. If you think that writing songs is about divine intervention, wrong. It's not about that. Maybe it was for Mozart, but it's about picking up a wedding invitation and going, Thistle Hill. That, I like the sound of that. And so I just built a little verse around that when I was constructing this song, and that's how tangible it can be. Next. This looks bigger than it is. This is actually a little tiny wreath. It's about yay big. This I had Christine's mom do as a symbol for a little business they had for a while, where they would gather the bride's flowers, and they'd make this dried flower wreath and then deliver it back to the bride. It was just stunningly beautiful, and all four of the shadow boxes have those in them. This is a chunk of Austin stone from Austin. I went down and quarried it myself. No, I'm kidding. I found it on the side of Highway 290, I think. So this photograph, yes, that's Brent, Christine, and my niece Tori. And I'm looking at this and thinking, it is impossible that my niece was that young. Where did 10 years go? My goodness, wow. And next, Uncle John's baby gift. And next, and of course, this would be, the song was written before my niece was born. Obviously, the shadow box was finished after, so I think that's all the slides. Yeah. Okay, let's play this sucker.
Cowboys ruled the world, and still we had to wander. Roses bloom in bald Georgia.